Hi there. Are you Benjamin Jones?
Yeah, that's me. Sorry I'm late.
It's okay. Let me see. And these are your contact details?
Yep, that's correct.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Now, Dr. Calunio is waiting for you in his office. Just go down that way and turn right once you reach the end. You won't miss it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are now listening to RPG Maker Cola.
Well, hello, Benny. Welcome to my virtual office. It's a pleasure to have you here. Before we start, I feel like I should try and explain what's going to happen to whoever is listening to us right now, and to you, of course. So this is the final episode of RPG Maker Cola, which is, in my opinion, and the opinion of many people I know, the best RPG Maker podcast there is, and one of the best game design podcasts I know. I'm here with its creator and host, usual host, Benny Jones, also known as Cash. Over the course of 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, RPG Maker Cola has given voice to many talented game designers, expanded their audiences, and promoted insightful discussions on many topics related to game design. This podcast is very dear to many people, including myself, and I believe it has played an important role in shaping the landscape of the RPG Maker world as we know it today. And for that reason, out of gratitude and curiosity, many people have wanted to learn more about its creator. The people want to know, who is Benny Jones really? And so for this final episode, Benny's original idea was to have some sort of role switch and get someone to interview him in his own podcast. I was invited to take that position. I was super honored to do so. But I think Benny is a lot like me in the sense that we like to think outside the box and not do things the obvious way. So we thought the final episode deserves something a bit different. As some of you might not know, my name is Nicolau Chaud, also known as Calunio. I'm a game designer and also a licensed therapist in Brazil. I recently released a game in which you play as a therapist. It's called Therapist Mind Manager. It's a game that Benny seems to like a lot, and I think it's a game that sparkled his interest in therapy themes in general. So our idea is, how about we turn what would be an interview into an actual therapy session? So that's what's about to happen right now. You are about to witness Benny Jones' first real therapy session. This is not scripted, this is not a role play, this is an actual therapy session. We're about to take a deep dive into the mind of one of the most puzzling game designers I know. So, Benny, thanks a lot for the invitation. I want you to feel comfortable about saying whatever you want to say and not saying anything you don't want to say. I have no idea where this conversation is going, but I'm really excited to find out. And I want to open it with an easy question, which is, why is this the final episode of RPG Maker Cola?
Hi, and thanks for having me in your office, Dr. Calunio. The reason why I'm finishing season 2 of RPG Maker Cola is that I thought I'd be able to word it a bit easier. I'm not always used to being on the interviewing side of things, but I have been doing this for a while now. I kind of jumped into the RPG Maker Cola sort of podcast just because I felt there was a gap where I didn't hear developers. I wanted to ask questions of developers and their processes, but I didn't get the chance. I didn't see anyone really interviewing, and so I started with articles, interviewing them in articles and stuff, and I posted those articles, like interviewing Arkea and I think it was Indra and Foma, I can't remember who, I think Renove and stuff. And then later on this podcast, but it's a lot of editing, like there's a lot of editing, there's a lot of behind the scenes work that goes into it. I can estimate maybe I'm doing like 15 hours a week maybe of work, editing and streaming alongside my 40-hour a week. That's minus travel, because the COVID is not very restrictive in New Zealand right now. So we work in the zone, so there's a lot of travel, and then I also edit on top. So actually, I'm spending a lot of time in my room editing the podcast, and that would be okay if I didn't have another thing that was kind of looming, which is I have a game called Paper Thin that I really want to make. And I'm like almost bursting at the seams, like constantly like walking around the block, just like dreaming up new scenarios like, oh, what if I could do this? And it seems to be that thing that's really passionate for me right now. And as much as I really enjoy uplifting other creators, which I've so much enjoyed so far, the hardest part is the editing, but the most fun I get out of it is promoting others' work and playing the others' work and seeing the surprises that lie within and hearing, new stuff. But right now, my main thing that's drawing me in is this game that's like been swelling within me like a growing dream. And that's what's kind of compelling me right now to finish the podcast season and maybe later do a season 3 or, well, I'm thinking, anyway, I'm talking a lot, but that's my idea right now.
So it's basically some sort of change of priority. You want to stop maybe for some time with the podcast so you have more time to do other things that are priority to you right now, especially the game.
Exactly. Yeah. Probably one of those other things is hanging out with friends a little bit more on the Saturday, because the Saturday streams are like 6 hours every Saturday. And I kind of want to have like maybe even a 3-hour stream on the Saturday so I can spend the rest of the Saturday hanging out with friends.
Let me ask you something, because I feel like this is a shifting in priority in the sense that you said that you like uplifting other game designers. And now you're focusing on your own game. So you're giving less focus to maybe helping other people and focusing more on yourself. Would you say that it's something that's represents a bigger change in your life, or it's just something that has to do with game design?
Well, it's going to be a big change in my life. Yeah. I think if I interpret that correctly is that, it's going to change my life.
I want to know if
bit.
you are focusing more on yourself in other areas of your life and not just game design.
Oh yeah. Maybe. I'm trying to think about how that would apply.
So let me make like a question to open room for this one. You said you were spending a lot of time of your week for many months, over I think maybe a couple of years, dedicated to editing a podcast whose main purpose was to uplift other game designers. So it's something I think part of you enjoyed doing that, but you were mostly doing it for other people. I want to know if that's normal for you to dedicate time and energy to helping other people.
Oh, yes. Let me think. At least, in a sense, like there's other things that I haven't helped other people with. I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure whether I've helped others too much in my life lately, at least. I don't really know what it is, maybe, to... sorry, I'm getting a bit confused about it, but yeah.
But it's part of therapy to ask questions to which you didn't have a previous answer. So feel free to think about it a little.
Yeah.
Let me try and make this even simpler. Do you feel like you like helping people?
I definitely do. Yes, I love helping people.
And how do you usually try to do that?
I usually try to do that by giving other people my time, by helping enable them to do the things that they dream to do, even if it's away from, if it's outside of my online life. yeah, it's speaking positively, I suppose, to people, and when they're going through troubles, giving them either a helping hand or some advice, or affirming them that they are valid, and just listening to them, granting them a listening ear, all that kind of stuff, I suppose. And that's the ways that I help people. I find maybe I don't necessarily like have a good instinct to, go and drop dinner off at someone's house, or clean up something for someone without them asking, or all those kinds of things.
That's a different kind of help, I think.
Yeah. I don't really have the instinct in that way, which is something that I've always wanted to kind of grow in. Yeah.
You've wanted to do that?
I think I've wanted to be a more sort of like instinctual helper in a certain kind of way. There's ways that I feel like I haven't been very instinctual in the way that I've been helping others, and I feel like I could grow in that area. Yeah.
Try to explain to me what you mean by instinctual.
I suppose I think I know where this might be going in my head, is that there's certain things that I feel people just do very as if it's an innate part of them that I can't really seem to wrap my head around. I'm trying to think of an example. Yeah. It's quite difficult for me sometimes to...
Because what you said is that you usually help people with words, positive words, and listening and giving advice and telling them stuff to make them feel better about themselves and their projects. Isn't that right?
Yeah. I'm not sure if I I view myself as a person who naturally loves in a very open way. I find it requires a lot of effort for me to sacrifice my own comfort for someone else. Lately, maybe earlier in my life it was easier, but I always felt there were things that people would just do instinctually, like, bake each other stuff or do stuff for each other that seemed to be, I knew that was the right thing to do, so I just went and did it, sort of thing. It wasn't something that everyone had, but it was something that I always admired in people, that they would go out of their way to help someone else. And I couldn't seem to do that, sort of thing. Yeah.
So you say that's something you would like to do more?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think I'm getting better at acknowledging needs. Maybe a bit more selfish. I don't know. As time goes on, recently, I don't know what that's about, but yeah.
Yeah, you use the word sacrifice at some point. Do you feel like you sacrifice something, maybe your time, your energy, or maybe even your well-being, while trying to help people? Or were there moments in which it happened?
Yeah, I suppose so. Like, maybe I used to think that way all the time, and I've slowly started to grow out of that all love required sacrificing oneself or giving yourself, and you had to hurt yourself in order to help someone else, sort of thing. But I kind of figured out ways, okay, some of the best ways to love someone else is by benefiting yourself and someone else at the same time, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Does it say anything about your past relationships?
What kind of relationships? Romantic or familial?
Yeah, romantic relationships.
Maybe, I think, yeah, because I'm open to discuss any of my previous romantic relationships publicly. I don't have any. I won't hold back on that. Like, you mean in the way that I felt like I didn't love? I think there was particularly my first girlfriend that I had, where actually that is like, one of the reasons why I felt like she broke up with me is because there was this moment I remember when I was like, we were at a gas station, and then she got out to put the gas in the car, and then I didn't get out, but I didn't know that I needed to get out, and then I kind of went, maybe I should, and then it was building up over time, and then it came to the point where she said, hey, Lada's like, well, something like, I don't know if it's real guys or real boyfriends or whatever, or that they'd know to do that. And I think I just want someone who would know to do that without being asked. And there is also that kind of, I've heard it in my life before about about you don't know how to do something if you haven't been asked to do it.
It's funny because at the same time that you are saying that trying to help people is a huge part of your life, most of the examples you're giving me are situations in which you feel like it was not enough.
Yeah.
Is that a feeling you have often?
That I haven't given enough?
Yes.
All the time. Yeah.
When you said all the time, what others, maybe the most important situation in your life right now that came to your mind?
When I said all the time,
yes,
I suppose this also taps into my religious kind of the background and stuff. That's all tied together.
Tell me a little about it.
Yeah, it's funny how this game I'm making, Paper Thin, is sort of like a confluence of the religious and romantic ideas that are coming up in this. But anyway, yeah, so about my religious
It's
background.
okay if you want to make bridges with the concept of the game while telling us about your life.
Yeah, but I'm actually okay with not doing that as well. That's fine. But but I think it's just funny how coincidental it is. Anyway, yeah, I grew up conservative Christian. My grandma started the church that I grew up in, the church that is about as old as me. I am almost 30 now. Yeah, and it's a very family-oriented church. My parents became the pastors, and I was very strongly fundamentally religious, even up until maybe about a few years ago. I went to Bible college, and it was to the point where, I held a lot of beliefs that would have, liberals annoyed at me. I am left-leaning, by the way. Well, I don't know. Anyway, that doesn't matter. But but it's just I've changed. I'm just emphasizing that I'm changed now. But I guess that does matter, that I'm a point of stasis now, that I have sort of come to a place where I'm not even sure where I'm at the moment with that. So, but yeah, I grew up very, very religiously. I would sacrifice everything for the God that I believe in, all that kind of stuff, and I would preach it to the world, and that was my one mission in life, and nothing else mattered, and it was all about God, and everything was to glorify Him, and that was my entire life, and every action I did was to support that one mission. And it was not just because my parents did not bully me into this. I just grew up in it and I chose it. And only recently, in the past few years, have I started to become a bit more loose on that concept. But I'm still figuring it all out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But when you said that the church was founded by your grandmother and that your parents are pastors, I feel like it's hard to separate the influence of the religion and of your family, because it feels like they came together all the time.
Yeah, and I think in the Christian culture that I grew up in, that the church was equated with family, because the God was the Father, your church family was brothers and sisters, and it was all family as well. And my blood family was involved in it, and yeah, I guess it's all in there.
You said you were not bullied into adopting those principles and following church the way you did, but I want to know if you can maybe pinpoint in your history things that you've heard that strengthen this feeling of what you're doing is not enough.
Would it be that would be in my familial history I'm searching, or
probably, but I don't know.
Yeah. I think the funny thing is that I don't remember teachers or my my dad or my mum or anybody like that ever telling me that I'm not good enough to do something. I guess that is a bit different because that's about my power to do something. But they always supported me in everything I did, I think. But I think they always loved me no matter what I did. But I think I've lost the question a little bit.
Do you feel like you're a very competitive person?
How would you describe competitive? I'm not too sure. Like competition.
Someone who is constantly trying to be the best in something.
Oh, it depends on what it is. If it's this game, I want to make the best game in the world, definitely better than all the other games. So,
but
yeah,
because I feel like it may have something to do with the way you relate to religion as well. Because maybe it's not that you were hearing negative things that made you feel like you weren't doing enough, but maybe you were so addicted to hearing positive things about the things you did that you always wanted to do a bit more. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think also I was with the religion thing comes the concept of perfection, and that sanctification is the biblical term for constantly moving towards perfection, and that was something that was a big emphasis throughout my childhood and my entire life was to become more perfect. You will never become fully perfect, but it was to become less sinful, to become more in the will of Christ and all that kind of thing. So that was the idea that was sort of not drummed into me. Well, in a sense it was actually throughout my youth. I can think of, times when it was, but I always equate it with love as well, because I always, it was sometimes my uncles who also loved me. And even now I don't consider that I know everything, what is right and what is true and what is false, but so I can't say that that's not true, false for sure, but I think if it is false, then I equated it with love as well, because it came from someone who loved me, and it was always love. It came from a place of love. I don't know if that made I have ADHD for anybody who's listening, but my sometimes my concentration breaks and then I forget what I'm talking about halfway through.
Or maybe that's just you trying to have a perfect speech in the way you're describing stuff. But I think I like where we're going with this. You don't have to worry about giving perfect answers to the questions. What I want to know right now is, because what I'm thinking is, when you said that coincidentally or not, the themes we are discussing are closely related to the main themes of your next game, Paper 10. And at the same time, you said that you are in some sort of transition phase in the way you think about religion, and maybe in the way you think about your relationships, in that you are less willing to make sacrifice for other people and embracing the fact that you can be selfish sometimes. So what I want to know is in what ways does your game represent this transition?
Yeah, that's actually a good insight, because it does. I think if I was to make this game earlier, I probably would not. I might have even considered it too selfish an endeavor to go for, because it would spend a lot of time by myself doing an artistic endeavor, something which I'd previously probably would have thought was decent, but not the best way to. Here comes the mission again. Bring the maximum amount of people to the kingdom of God, for example.
Okay.
Yeah, so it would be okay, you want to make this game, but really, is it going to be what God wants? And I think I even asked that of myself a few years ago, and I said, no, I'm not going to make this game. So that was a big, obviously, it's a big kind of, what used to be a tension in the fact that I'm making it now. I think that signifies that I've allowed myself to be selfish, if that makes sense.
What is Paper Thin about? How would you describe it shortly?
So Paper Thin is the story of Marcus and Alyssa meeting in a town called Farrowtown in a world made of paper. It's like a romance, but it's like a visual novel. If you think of Disco Elysium or early CRPGs such as Diablo or Fallout, or even D&D, where you kind of like go about and you make skill checks, but the idea is that it's sort of like skill checks of the mind, mental skill checks. Do you have enough? Is your anxiety too high to say this? Are you too nervous, or have you had enough sleep to do this paper correctly, or all this kind of stuff. It's like a life simulation, also mechanics built into their side scrolling. So that's the idea of the game, and it's funny. I start off with like kind of a smaller concept, which has grown and ballooned in scope over time. And would you like to talk about the themes of it as well, or?
Yes, mostly.
Okay, and the themes are also concerning romance, and there's a little sneaky religion in there, but it's sort of, more about God and our relationship with God, and me, the author, being the god of the work, and I'm still figuring some stuff out about that, but basically it's about the intimacy of relationship. I want it to be a really super intimate feeling. I don't know if anyone's watched the movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, or or like Blue Valentine or the Before trilogy. I just was really endeavored by these super intimate movies with like lots of dialogue and stuff, and I just really wanted to make something where a conversation felt like super dynamic but also really intimate at the same time, and that was where the impetus for the game came from. And then I played Cart Life, and I really enjoyed that dynamism. I was like, why aren't there more games like this? I love this. And so I'm making an anxious life simulator.
In what way do you identify yourself with your main character?
It's funny, those parallels have been more and more lucid, and then the ways that we differ have been more and more clear as I progress through. I'll likely learn more and more as I go through, because Marcus is an evolving character as it goes. But basically, I don't want to get too much into the spoilers of the game, because, but the whole game is about acceptance of what happens to you, not only in life, but in your relationships. So the idea is that everything in the game is sort of deterministic, in that there's not really randomness at play, because I know that in Disco Elysium you roll a dice, or in D&D you roll a dice, and depending on the roll you either succeed or fail. In this game, with options, they're either crossed out or they're available to you, so you can plan. It's almost like a board game, like chess. The entire thing is deterministic. So it's this idea of a predetermined world where there's no choice. And where was I going with that? What was the question again?
The question was, in what ways you identify yourself with the main character, and you said the one of the main themes of the game is acceptance, and now I want to know, how is acceptance an important theme in your life right now?
Oh, right. I think I've learned to have a happier life through acceptance, because it's one thing I see that causes a lot of pain is when people can't accept when things happen to them, or they can't feel. I found the best way to deal with some things is like, because I can often be rocked by suffering. I used to be rocked by suffering, and if I got hit by something unfortunate that happened, it would hurt me deep inside. But I suppose if there's something that you can detach and laugh at it and recognize it for what it is, then there's a sense that you can accept to go, this is part of my life. This is part of it. All of it is part of it. And I don't think I condone like practical acceptance of every single thing, as in like, everything's happened to me. I have no control over everything, because I think pragmatically our brains don't work that way. I think pragmatically we operate under some sense of free will, but there's also the piece that comes from acceptance.
You don't have to fix everything.
What was that? Sorry, you cut out a little
bit. You don't have to fix everything.
Yes. And that might have been that was a big thing before for me. I just realizing is that with the religion thing, but also the way that I work, I just look at problems in the world and then I look around and go, I really want to fix as much as possible with the world, with everyone as possible. How can I do that? Then I'd pray to the Lord. I'd pray to God. I'd be like, how can I do this? Please help me. Please guide me to the right people. Please help me to affect the right people and do the right thing in the right situation to help maximize their happiness and maximize their life, all this kind of stuff. So I was like, how can I live in the best way to help others in the maximum possible way? And then I think maybe recently I realized that there's not as much in my control as I thought.
One thing that makes more sense to me by now is that maybe part of your feeling of not doing enough is because your goals were always very ambitious, because you wanted to, I feel like, literally fix everything and make everything perfect in the world, in yourself, and in other people. So of course you would never do nearly enough.
Yeah. Yes. Agreed.
And I feel like the impression I have is that before, when you thought about that, you maybe felt frustrated, but now when you deal with acceptance, you feel okay about this idea.
Yeah. It makes me feel better in general. I don't get as highly worked up. I think I used to pray and agonize even. I might have even thought that it was good to agonize. I don't know if there's that tenet of asceticism where I don't know if it's asceticism, but it's that idea where you have to hurt yourself in order to become the strongest. No pain, no gain kind of thing. And I did have that in my mind. I was like, well, sometimes the more pain you get, the more gain you're gonna get. So I was like, if I had painful experiences, sometimes I was like, wow, that means something's going right. And self-inflicted, yeah. So that's not healthy, is it? But I learned that a bit more later, I think.
So maybe this is also part of why you are accepting that the idea that you don't have to spend so much time editing the podcast.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, Yeah, I think that is funny because I think if I had those beliefs, I probably might not have done the podcast because I've been like, oh, that's a waste of time, It's not bringing people to God, all that kind of stuff. You know what it is? It used to all be about.
But I know that you often sacrifice hours of, not just hours of sleep and your overall health, but also a lot of other things you want to do because you have been spending a lot of time editing the podcast. And I think that sacrifice is maybe part of what you said, that you feel like, okay, it hurts, so I must be doing something right.
Yeah,
especially because you're doing it for other people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing, definitely. Another thing I think is that I have a very, I'm probably talking to developers, so they know what I'm talking about when, you have a very high standard of things when it comes to podcast editing and stuff. So I will do all I can and then not be okay with it. I'm usually not okay with almost all my work. I usually dislike all my work. Very, very few times do I like anything I've created. I don't know if that can.
Okay, so let's test that. How do you like what you have created in the RPG Maker code so far?
The funny thing about it that makes it more tolerable is that it's a lot of other people in there. So it's like, when I because it's me hosting others, I'm more okay with it. Because I'm like, well, look at them go, look at their projects being promoted. I feel like that. I'm like, yeah, I like doing that. I like seeing other people's, sales go up, or, I'll be like, yeah, I help with that. That's the overall feeling that I'd enjoy from that. So I don't. So
you feel like you're proud of the podcast?
Oh, very. I'm very proud of the podcast, and I think that transition to liking myself more, as well. Like liking myself more is also in there, because I don't mind my voice now, I don't mind my face now, and I'm more confident with things that I wouldn't have been as confident with before. So I am growing, I think, in this, becoming more loving of myself, where I didn't used to be. But yeah, I'm very proud of the podcast.
What are the experiences that you feel like were most important in helping you love yourself more?
I gotta be honest, I think it was the declining faith. It is funny to think about, because, I had the ideal, it was a very idealistic living. It was all very much, okay, live by God's ideals, serve God, do this way, and believe in, if you're not doing it right, you're not doing it right. And moving to a very relativistic point of view, I was able to... What was the question again? It was about... what was the question again?
Sorry, I lost you. I can't hear you.
Oh, hello? Test. Sorry.
Okay,
Cool.
I hear you now.
Okay, cool,
Yeah.
cool. Where did you last hear me speak?
You were saying that you were very idealistic.
Yeah, so I was very idealistic, and I was very idealistic, so I think I forgot what the question was.
It's okay. I ask what experiences you believe were most important in helping you love yourself more.
Oh yeah, so I used to be very idealistic in the way, put others above yourself, sort of thing, or serve others in this way. And once it became more relativistic, I was able to just go, okay, I can just love me and do stuff for me and not feel bad about it, and actively learn to not feel bad about playing games instead of evangelizing out in the field, and doing stuff that's, not necessarily going to help the entire world get saved and go to heaven. Yeah, so that was the idea, is that I was able to feel free to just, okay, I can just play some games, and Benny, you don't have to feel bad about it. I think that was it.
One thing I'm noticing about the way you speak is that your speech is very idea oriented, and you almost never describe any facts. And maybe, I don't know, it's a pattern. I think that's something I see when you were talking about paper thin. Because it's normal for some game designers to maybe not have a broad idea of their game, but they have specific scenes and dialogues and moments and characters they like and they want to create. But when you are talking about the game, you always talk about general ideas and not concrete mechanics and scenes. And I feel like it's the way you talk about your life as well. Because I want to know what happened, specific facts that you think might have helped you love yourself more, not just the transition of ideas, because I feel like our mind changes according to what's happening in our lives. So the question is, what's happening in your life right now?
Like the question is, what's happening in my life right now?
What happened that helped you love yourself more and allow yourself to do more selfish choices, etc.?
Oh. Yeah, I don't really have a good... Yeah, I don't really have much of a like memory. My memory goes pretty bad sometimes. So like, what am I thinking of? I don't know.
It's okay, because maybe you just don't pay attention. If your speech is oriented that way, so is your attention. So maybe you are more focused on the ideas that you can extract from experiences than the experiences themselves. It's fine. It doesn't have to do with memory or anything.
Okay.
I want you to make a leap and then come back to some things that you were saying, because
Okay.
You said that one of the main themes of your game is intimacy, and you
Right.
made references to some movies and some games. But I want to know in what way, not what way, what experiences from your life do you draw inspiration to discuss intimacy in your game?
For some reason, this is a lot easier to answer because I remember it very vividly. I'll try and be as try and be as concrete with my answer as possible. But not mentioning names, obviously. I'm just trying to figure out. So I had I've had two girlfriends in my life. The first girlfriend I met, I think I was 25. She was 23. We were tutors at a local high school. She was very awkward. She was very sort of shy and nervous, and she was what gravitated me to ask her. I asked her to go to the movies, and but I asked her, and I was asking my family because we'd gone our separate ways, and I somehow had her Facebook. But then I was like mulling it over in my mind. I was like, I should just ask her out. I've never asked anyone out in my life, and I think I was like 24 or something, or 25. So I was like, I asked my dad, should I do this? And then I accidentally said the name because I was like, I don't want to say the name, and then I accidentally said the name. I've done that several times in my life because I'm like, yeah, I've got a girlfriend. I don't want to say the name, and then I say the name right after. So it's quite both of the times. I had a girlfriend anyway. So yeah, and like my whole experiences with them, long talks with them, and even the tough times that I had with them. There were many times where, like that example I mentioned earlier, or tough sort of conversations that seemed to be painful. There was the long and winding conversations that kind of inspired me to say, I would love to have this in a game, but also highlight how that feels, to have very long and interesting conversations with people. I don't know if it's egotistical to think that not everyone does, but I was able to have a very, and not everyone wants it as well. Not everyone wants like a very, like, not everyone craves super interesting conversations like I do, but I really do, and
so it's something that you feel that you lived, not something that you just saw in movies.
Oh yeah, definitely lived. In fact, I draw upon those movie feelings to say to give inspiration for how I frame them, but really, the idea came irrespective of those influences. It wasn't the movies that wanted me to that brought about the idea of the conversations to this game. It was just me thinking about my relationships and how they felt.
Mm-hmm. And you said you don't want to spoil the game, of course, but you can spoil something about your own life, I think. So you said that you want players to feel, what you felt during such conversations. Can you try and describe me what do you feel when you're having such deep conversations?
Well, I guess since I was spiritual at the time, it felt, I believed in the concept of an eternal soul, and I believed that a conversation could go on and you'd find out an everlasting sort of like well of interesting things about a person, and that they could be, you could go on forever talking to someone and finding out more about them, and there'll always be more things to explore. So that's why I always found the conversation to be the most interesting thing to explore. I'm not really the type of person who goes to like a countryside and looks at it and go, oh wow, beautiful. I sometimes do. I sometimes find nature very beautiful, but I'm more of an internal thinker. So if I'm looking for a partner, I usually look for someone who's very chatty and loves a good conversation. But what was the question again?
What do you feel like when having such conversation?
Oh, what do I feel? How do I feel?
Yes, how do you feel? Because that's the feeling you want to portray in your game. So what is it? What is the feeling?
Yes, so the feelings that I want to sort of portray in the game is like non-linearity, but like the idea that there's a lot going on under the surface, and that like it feels very dynamic, and there's lots of secrets, but there's also your little smiles, the little emotions that you can try and go, what is causing that? Why are you feeling that way? And it's about the person, a real person who can be the most dynamic thing in the world. And the irony is that my simulation of a person can nowhere near like approximate what a real person would feel like, but you can sort of get a general sense of like how, like I've always felt like conversations in games, I guess is a complaint, have felt super linear and simple, and I don't know if I can actually make it less boring, but it just feels very plot oriented, like, oh, we have to go to this beat, then that character trait. But I just wanted to, those movies inspired me because they emphasize that feeling. Well, it's not really about the plot beats, it's about the conversations that you have and the deepness, the depth, that you have with the person.
Would you
So, yeah,
say
that's the
that,
feeling.
the deepest conversations you have, the conversations that were more intimate, were with your girlfriends, or do you feel like you have such conversations with other people as well?
Well, if we defined intimacy as like closeness, or like, I think I'd also, if I were to say intimacy with care as well, like care and sort of like conscientiousness and sort of sharing of ideas and willingness to participate and all that kind of stuff, where it feels like it just flows, a conversation. I've had plenty of those conversations with a lot of different people. I've had them with, girlfriends. I've had them with my best friends. I probably choose my best friends, but by people who are willing to have these sorts of conversations. So I am able to have deep conversations, with anyone who's, I suppose, willing. I think, I don't know. That's my answer, I guess.
It's because you said the main themes in your game are intimacy in relationships, romantic relationships mostly, because I know there will be other sorts of relationships, but the focus relationship is romantic, and acceptance, and everything with religious overtones. And I feel like in your own life there is some sort of bridge between the experiences you had with intimate relationships and the development of acceptance, but I can't tell what that bridge is. What do you think?
Yeah. So you mean between the relationships I've had and the idea of me discovering acceptance? I think the acceptance happened. The idea of the acceptance was starting to happen after a breakup, because I think actually my first breakup affected me quite heavily. I was crying a lot in my room, and I know my family heard it next door, and I cried for like 2 weeks afterwards, very heavily. And
can you tell me what happened in that breakup?
So what happened was we, my girlfriend at the time, we were about a year and a quarter of a year in, and then she moved down to a different city, and we were about 2 hours away. But there were certain things. We had a video call, and I was acting weird because I just wasn't a big fan of video calls, and she was lagging, and she was also with in an apartment with I think there was a guy and there was a girl, and then I thought the guy was an attractive dude, so I was like, hey, she might fall for him, sort of thing. I had that in my mind, but I didn't say that to her out loud, but there was just that fear. And then there was another guy who she did end up who I met when I was down there, who she did end up, when she left me, she did end up marrying him, or not marrying, sorry, getting engaged to him, and then they split later. But that happened. I met him. We met him while we were together. Yeah, but what was the question again? It was
just to tell me a bit about the breakup. What happened? So was it your decision, her decision, mutual decision?
It was her decision. I think, and she gave 3 reasons. It was funny because I keep thinking about them later, and I wonder, because one of them was she was living life in another city and wanted to be single for a while and enjoy. She realized she enjoyed things like sports, and she wasn't doing that anymore. But like I think she realized the allure of this single life. Maybe that was what I was getting from her over the phone when she was describing this. And then the other one was, I think the other one was just a simple, I don't think you're the one for me. And then the other, I forgot what the other one was. I can't remember. There were 3 reasons. I wrote them down, but I might have forgotten them. Anyway, but the idea
You
that
wrote them down, why?
because I wanted to analyze them.
Okay.
I had to. Well, I put them down on a notepad while she was calling. I think for this very reason, I wanted to know, like, if I thought about it later, why did she leave me? I wanted to know the reasons. Or at
You
least
took notes about from your breakup talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, well, I took it very seriously. For example, there was another time in my other relationship, my second girlfriend, where she was sort of dictating something that she was going through, and then I had to. It was like I had to take notes for that. I felt like I had to take notes for that. I take a lot of notes in everyday life. I've got lots and lots of notes. I've got a Google Drive full of pages and pages of notes that I take. That's the type of personality I have.
But one question, I don't know if it's going to be hard to answer, but I have this idea that the pain we have from breakups is not just the pain of missing the person we like, but also the pain that comes from the interpretation we give about the breakup, of what does the breakup say about ourselves. And it's usually a negative thing because, well, we lost someone we loved. So I want to know, in that moment when you were crying for 2 weeks, how do you feel what do you feel the breakup told you about yourself?
So much. Like, I mean, that is that, at least for my breakups, has been so true. And even like the many breakups, like the matching with someone on a dating app, and then they don't respond after the second message, and then you go, what's wrong with me? So it's I think it's just so entrenched. I can't imagine us not being influenced by it. But
Of
yeah,
course.
the pain, I mean, I think I've already described the one earlier where I felt like, but I didn't describe how it related to my romantic relationships, is that I felt like later I recognized that the reason why she split with me was because I didn't fit her idea of an ideal partner that she had in her mind, which was someone who intuitively understood her and who wasn't like I'm quite an eccentric personality. I'm not like super normal in some ways. There's just some things that other people do that I don't pick up on, straight away. But yeah, I just felt that was the takeaway, is that she wanted someone who could do, and I think who could do all those things. And my takeaway from that, which I might not believe anymore, I'm trying to think about it, but was that there's just other, maybe even in my mind, I'm honestly saying better guys who can do that and do that naturally, and I just don't do that naturally. And maybe the thought I came out of that feeling was, I don't love naturally.
It's funny because even though that, because she said it herself, that you might not be the guy for her. And of course, she said that according to her standards of what she looks for in a person and what she likes and what she values. But naturally, when you are analyzing that, you try and interpret that in terms of what you value and what is important for you. And you just said that you really appreciate deep conversations and getting to know the person and understanding subtle things about her and intricacies and all that. And now you're telling me that maybe you were not able to do that properly with her, and that's possibly the reason why she broke up with you, because other people could do it better.
You mean the conversations?
Yes, from what I understand, you said that you felt like you didn't get her enough.
I think the ways that I felt like I failed her would be, it would have been the things like not getting out of the car to put the fuel in the canister, and even like not
Yes, but what is that an example of?
action-based love
Mm,
rather than
okay.
talking. Yeah, I think that might be what it is.
That makes sense. And that's exactly what you were saying at the very beginning of our conversation, that you like to help people a lot, but you mostly do that with words, and you feel like you should do more, not just talking and listening.
Yeah, I feel I'm good at talking and giving advice and being loving in word, but when it comes to action, I think I just sort of, I don't like to admit it because it's something that I feel ashamed about, not being able to naturally help others in action or identify needs and then go and, I think I've got better at it because my sister, for example, she'll, she'll need something done in the kitchen, and then I'll go and help them out. I always usually felt guilty for not doing like chores around the house naturally, without being asked and all that kind of stuff, because I kept forgetting about them, things like that. So I just felt like I was kind of useless in that way.
Yes, but do you not do those things? Do you not do action displays of love because you don't want to, because you are lazy, or just because you can't guess what the person expects?
It's hard for me to tell the difference sometimes, I think, because I feel...
If you are not guessing, you're being lazy?
I don't know. Because I've always assumed, because there's the thing, where there's that idea where you shouldn't. I have the idea where you shouldn't always have to be asked to do something in order to do it. I guess if it comes to chores, or if it comes to helping people out, like if someone has to ask you explicitly, by that point you haven't identified it beforehand, and that kind of factors into it, I guess.
Yes, but that's a lot of pressure to think that you must be able to, because you said the word identify. I am using the word guess, that you have to guess what everyone is expecting of you and do that for them even before they ask them. That's a huge pressure, and probably impossible in many cases.
Yeah, it's because I don't know. Maybe, okay. Well, actually, I had a filter there, but I was trying to say, I think what I would always say to be guessing, others would say is being lazy because you knew it, but you didn't do it, or you should have known. That was the idea. You should have known, and even if in my head it wasn't obvious, and then I would say to myself, no, it was. Your brain was just being dumb and not recognizing it, and you should have noticed, because, and even sometimes I might think, oh, you saw the signs, but you didn't interpret them correctly, so you should have noticed. You would, and even I would maybe equate with that being lazy, maybe, yeah.
Well, what I can tell you is that this is the thought that ruins marriages, is that when a couple, not just, I'm talking about marriages, but it applies to any relationship. When a couple is living together and obviously they are unsatisfied with each other for a number of reasons, and they can't communicate with each other clearly, and they just expect the other to guess what they want and guess what they don't like, and well, it doesn't go anywhere good. So I don't think it's a fair expectation to want people to guess what we need or want, or what we want from them. And maybe you might have heard, for example, in that case of the gas station, maybe she told you after that you should have guessed that she wanted you to leave the car. But in that particular case, if she said that, she was wrong. It's not fair to judge people by by not doing stuff they did know they have to do.
Yeah, I think looking back, so in the heat of, and in, I think it is my younger self, I definitely felt that way. I think now I look back at it and I do say I have better expectations of myself and others now. So if I was in that case, I think I have a better knowledge of myself. I have a knowledge of how much I'm worth. I think I'd feel differently. I'd act differently and feel differently. I don't necessarily think of it myself as being completely in the wrong now for there. I don't think I was in the wrong there. In fact, I didn't. Yeah, I just didn't recognize. So I don't think I blame myself for that anymore. But I think I might
maybe
have.
not as much, but I feel like you use the word ashamed. I'm ashamed of saying that I don't take action enough, and the reason you don't take action is not because you don't want to, but because you can identify what other people need. So I feel like it's not something that's completely resolved for you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't think it's. I think I've been actively trying to. I've been actively trying to improve there, and I think I have improved, but I've got a lot left. I've got a little bit of a way left to go there.
If you allow me, I want to, because, well, we didn't have any specific goal for this session, but I almost always end my sessions with maybe suggestions or some kind of homework, or at least something I want the client or patient to try to do different with his life or some specific problem. And if you are saying that you don't like that you can't identify what other people expect or want from you sometimes, I feel like you don't have the habit of asking them that directly, like, how can I help you, or just what do you expect from me in general? Do you feel like you ask those questions often?
Well, let me first say that I'm completely comfortable with you asking these questions, and I welcome it. And let me see. Do I ask those? I think I ask it more now, and I ask it more now. But I could, That's a good one to think about. Hello?
I'm waiting for your answer. Okay, because I feel like they're different in the sense that when you see that someone has a problem, maybe a problem with you, maybe a problem that doesn't have anything to do with you, and you want to help them, you can just help them the way you usually help people. And in your case, I think it's giving advice and saying something positive, or you can just ask what kind of help she wants, and maybe that's not something you do very often, like, how can I help you in this particular case? That's one thing that maybe you should try. Maybe you do sometimes, but maybe you should try to do more. And another thing that's more broad in terms of relationship is asking someone, not in the middle of a problem, but just in general, what do you expect from me in our relationship, and not just romantic relationships. That's something you can ask from to your parents, your siblings, your friends, maybe your boss. What do you expect from me in general? And I feel like the answer to those questions can help you have more realistic expectations about yourself, because I feel like you always want to do a lot for people, and it just keeps appearing in your speech, our whole conversation. You always want to do a lot, and you always feel like you're not doing enough.
Yeah. That kind of thing, asking for expectations, sort of scares me a bit. Maybe because I don't trust the answer enough. Like,
why
if someone
you don't trust because you feel like they would not be honest?
Yeah, because if I ask, "Am I doing enough?" and then they might say, "Yeah, you are. You're fine. You're fine." And then I'm like, "Well, I don't think that's an honest answer."
Yes, but am I doing enough is not a very good question either.
Right. What was the question that I should be asking?
What do you expect from me? For example, what do you expect from me as a friend? What do you expect from me as your son? What do you expect from me as your brother? What do you expect from me as your employee?
I've never asked that
general.
question. But that's an interesting thought. I've never asked that question, I think.
Nobody asked that question, but in your particular case, I feel like it would help you have more realistic expectations about yourself, because that's the problem. You have very high standards of yourself, and I think you feel like people have such standards of you too.
Yeah, I think that would be a good question to ask. It's funny that the first reaction that I had to that was me imagining asking and then saying, no, I don't want to do that because I don't want them to say that I don't need to do anything more. Because then I would feel like I would cry. And I don't want to cry in front of them. I don't want to make them feel like...
But why would that make you cry?
Because it would make me feel like they love me for more than what I do for them.
And is that a bad thing?
Is what a bad thing, making them feel that way? Or them letting me know that?
It is a bad thing that they feel that way.
No, it's not. I feel that way about almost everyone. That's the irony of it, I guess. I feel that way about.
Feel like people feel that way about you.
It's funny. Certain people I definitely know that I feel that they feel that way about me. Like my friends, I know that. Maybe I'm distrustful that, like a lot of people. Well, when I say it out loud, it seems silly, and then I go, no, of course they do. They just, but then maybe I don't know. I think I'm confusing myself here, but yeah.
Yes, but I want you to tell me how you maybe rationally you know that the reality is one way, but you feel like it's another way, and you can only feel that gap when you actually hear something from them. And I think that's the importance of that question. You need to feel that gap from what do you rationally maybe know that people expect from you, and what do you feel like they expect from you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that seems good. I don't know what else to say.
Okay, but do you is it something that you feel like you want to try?
Oh yeah. The asking them, I'll try and find a way to bring it naturally into conversation, or unnaturally, whichever way works. To ask them what they expect of me. I'm not sure how they'd answer. I'm not sure how I'd answer to this question like that, but I think it's at least something worth trying.
It's clearly something that's not easy for you. I don't think it would be easy for anyone. So it probably will not come that naturally. So you might have to, I don't know, make it will not come that naturally.
Yeah.
It's not something that just pops out in a conversation.
Yeah. So I'll have to.
You might make to do some efforts to bring that up.
Funnily enough, I'm okay with that. I'm known as the person who brings up the uncomfortable topics. I'm the person who, you know how a lot of people, they ask people out. This is like a joke among my friends. My friends joke to me. They say that I'm the person who asks the girl out directly. Instead of nowadays, I don't know what maybe the culture is to, go beat around the bush. I'll just say, do you want to go on a date with me? Like that, I'm that type of person who'll bring up so I'm actually I can do that, I think. Yeah,
I think that's a huge quality, because when you were talking about intimate conversations, I feel like most people enjoy that to some degree, but not everyone knows how to create such conversations because they are too scared to make certain questions or disclose certain facts. And the fact that you are not scared to do that, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, that's another thing. The reason for the game is to sort of bring that up and go, hey, these are the kinds of things that people talk about. These are the kinds of things that you can have. This is what a empathic, loving, two-way relationship. Because I know a lot of friends, some friends of mine who don't have that a lot. They just I mean, I don't know if that's necessary, but some people crave it. Some people crave this sort of two-way relationship where you exchange intimacy. Well, that seems funny, me talking about like that. But yeah, anyway, that's this kind of thing that my game, it's a intimacy simulator. No, it's not. But anyway, but yeah, that's the idea.
It's funny that even though we didn't talk about the game too much, I feel like the more I get to know you, the more hyped I am for your game. Because it's a very personal game in many ways, right?
Oh, right. Like basically this entire time we've been talking about my game.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
have that impression.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the game is drawn very much from personal experiences, and
And that's my favorite kind of game, definitely.
yeah. And my next game that I have planned is not. It's just a fun game, fun gameplay game. Like it's like I want to play a game with friends. I want to make a co-op game, and I'm just like I'd love to just make a game where I can play it with my friends and just have a good time. So
Nice.
it's completely different to this one. This one's all the real serious story, personal, revealing one, and the next one's just going to be a mage, a warrior, an archer, all going into a dungeon and having fun. So
I feel
that's
like Paper Thin is a very intense game in many ways. And now that we are getting to know you, it's very interesting to know where this intensity comes from.
Oh yeah. I get the feeling that sometimes I'm an intense person, but I can also be a very calming person. I know that people I know, my family members and such, or even friends, know that I can be very emotional, very loving, and then I can also be very sharp at the same time. I can be very cruel. I think even at the same time. So I can be very calm and also very cruel. I don't know if it's like intentionally cruel, but I can put people down with words very easily sometimes.
Mhm.
Yeah, but
Maybe I don't know to what degree you use that in your real life, but it's an interesting skill to write game dialogue too.
yeah, yeah.
So while there's a lot more I like to know, I feel like our time is up because I wanted to make this a 1 hour session because that's usually how long therapy sessions last, and just so we can start finishing it, I would like to know how are you feeling right now?
Yes. I was going to make the joke that there's probably another patient waiting outside, but yeah. How am I feeling right now? I'm feeling good. I think halfway I was starting to feel a little bit emotional, like I was getting a bit teary. I get a bit like that when I have a little bit of coffee, though. I get a bit emotional. Helps me dream ideas for my games. But right now, at the end of this, I'm feeling very kind of relieved and happy. I'm feeling a little worried because I'm just like, oh, there's some things I said there but I know that one of the only people I know that will listen to this is a friend who already knows all of this anyway. But yeah, and I won't really publicize it among my extended family, so it's going to be all right. But yeah, I think I honored everyone in my talks, and but also I just feel good. I think I feel happy. I'm excited. I'm so excited for what's to come as well. I'm like, yes, I'm going to make this game. It's really, really, I can't wait.
Yeah, and one thing I think is really interesting is that this game comes from a transition phase that's happening in your life right now, and I think it will be part of that transition as well, in the sense that it will change who you are making that game. I know it sounds like a lot, but I truly believe that's something that happens when we're making games.
It's also
maybe
a thing
make
that
this change more solid.
Yeah. It's also a thing that when I publish the game, all of the ideas inside the game are playable by anyone I know. So everyone sort of sees, and they'll probably instantly go, oh, this is a lot of Benny's life. Yeah, but I haven't always, so I'm not a super private person. I do wear my heart on my sleeve, even amongst my family, but like, even I dread, sometimes I have to block it out of my mind that my dad or my mum or my siblings might play it. I'm just like, no, they're not going to play it, because then I can be openly honest with the way I write. I do have certain people I write for. I make the game for. Like I think of certain people, even like yourself, and then there's my friend, and there's other people who I'm like, I want to impress them. I want to make them feel. I want to make them have a good experience with my game. So I just think about like a handful of people. I'm like, oh, how can I, And then I just expect everyone else to have the same reaction.
Nice. Well, I really appreciate your honesty. I really enjoyed having this conversation with you. I loved learning so much about you. I would love to learn a lot more. If this was a therapy session in other contexts, I would be anxious for our next session. But gladly, we are friends, and we can have such conversations in other contexts as well.
Yeah. Cool. Shall I exit the office now then?
Yes.